Okay. Hold on, I'm going to pause it.
I'm insanely pumped on this session. So Dan, Ryan, $100 million men over from Vancouver. So before we get into introductions, I just got to say, we had you guys on. You guys were just kind of hanging out with us on a session about 2.5 weeks ago. And it just went down this wormhole of like NFTs, crypto, podcasts. So by popular demand, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I have like a million questions. So hope everybody's pumped to hear just like a whole bunch of amazing information that you guys are like housing up here. So first of all, introduce yourself, guys. Tell us a bit about yourselves.
Perfect. I'll jump in first here. My name is Dan, and Ryan is my business partner here. We are Vancouver-based agents. We are about to be 5-year licensed in about a couple months here, started within a couple months of each other. We have partnered up. We have built up a real estate team now. We are a team of 5 plus a virtual assistant. Starting at the beginning, back in 2020, it was essentially just Ryan and I closed out about 50 million in sales. 2021, thanks to Samard's coaching, thanks to Eric Preston, thanks to things like our podcast and YouTube channel, we actually doubled our production. We hit about 100 million in 2021. And team's growing. So we brought on 2 agents. Our licensed assistant is moving into the buyer agent role. And we're here to share some of our stories and successes and some ideas here on how to generate leads, clients, and all grow our businesses.
Wow. So going from where you were, so again, you've doubled production in 1 year. What are some of the specific pieces that you attribute that to?
I'll let Ryan jump in and kind of say his piece first, and then happy to kind of give you the top line stuff of what we saw really have impact in 2021.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think it's important to remember, guys, we're talking from a team perspective too, right? So just remember that. But I would say probably the biggest thing that's led to our success is very simply, Dan and I have discovered what each other does really, really well, and we play to our strengths, right? So Dan's really good at things that I'm horrible at, right? And vice versa. Well, I don't know about horrible, is kind of a strong term, but and we cover each other's weaknesses, right? I mean, I'm pretty honest with it. I'm pretty horrible at some things. And Dan is really good at them, right? And so, for example, when we're fine-tuning our drip campaign, Dan understands the sequence of how quickly people need to get hit, and I'm working on sort of the EQ level of what those messages look like, right? Vice versa. I don't know. And it's just, we like I said, we just play to each other's strengths. I think that's a really, really important piece.
I think I nicknamed you guys early on.
Yeah, you did.
And Captain Kirk and Spock. I think it's a fair assessment. Courtney, would you agree that's a fair assessment, having worked with Dan and Ryan, right? One guy's like super IQ based and one guy's super EQ based, and it works really fucking well.
Guess which one I am.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think too, without question, one of the things that was a bit of a surprise for us when it came to lead gen and attracting clients was in fact our podcast and now YouTube channel. So we started a podcast about 18 months ago with the vision of it being entirely focused on real estate in Vancouver, providing market knowledge and doing a whole bunch of interviews with key professionals in our space. We're very consistent with it. We've done one every Saturday morning for 18 months now, including Christmas Day, including New Year's Day. It's that important to us. We want to continuously and constantly provide value. And then, of course, through being with Sims, like the coaching, and Eric really pushed us into YouTube. So we had a YouTube channel, but we were not giving it the energy that it deserves in this day and era that we live in. So we started really pushing it about 6-7 months ago, and quickly found out that there's a lot of eyeballs in YouTube. I mean, obviously, but we've kind of now experienced it firsthand. So much so that we kind of saw the volume of our YouTube channel hit and then accentuated and beat by YouTube within just a matter of months. Now, one of the big offshoot surprises of that is how many people are watching, but maybe not replying or saying something publicly. And what I mean by that is we now will go out in public, and all sorts of both realtors and potential clients will come out of us out of the blue and be like, hey man, I just recognize you, just wanted to say, great work, love what you're doing, find it super interesting. So similar to TV, when you have a potential client out there that is watching your YouTube channel, you're basically going through a listing presentation or a buyer's presentation every time you put out an episode, and people get very comfortable with you. So what we've also discovered is when we go to meet a new client, whether they're buying or selling or both, we don't need to pitch ourselves. They've already bought into it. They already know who we are. They already like, know, and trust us. So at that point, we find it's just getting down to logistics, which is really cool, of course, right? It kind of fast tracks the process. And then the realtors that are watching it and learning from it, well, if they're on the other end of a deal and they bring out the YouTube channel, they're like, well, okay, these guys come across as pros. This is going to be a smooth deal. So we found two polar, really, really exciting benefits from that YouTube channel.
Can I say something on that? Because it's funny. I was just listening to a mega agent out of Toronto doing a talk just literally before this. And it's one of the things that he talked about, and something I've been saying for years as well. Stop selling. Like, stop selling. Video is a great way for you to build affinity and trust with people before they get to know you and before you walk in the door. If you're doing listing presentations and all you're doing is selling your sizzle, you're not connecting with people. And so it's really interesting that you said that. And this is a common thing that I've found in our mastermind groups, is the people that are most successful are the ones that have video that can tell the story. And then what it does is it attracts people that already like you, because they already know you. They feel like they know your personality. So you kind of attract like-minded people. And if they don't like you, they're not going to reach out to you.
Jason, it's the basis of the sort of the first thing that you kind of taught us, which is to always bring value first, right? So if you're ever going to come to a conversation, whether it's about real estate, whether you're online or with someone, bring value, right? Don't sell them on anything. You don't need to sell them on something. When you bring value first, they buy in, right? And then you prove it with statistics, right? So, oftentimes, and this is the same case with attracting agents to EXP. The same process takes place. I mean, the same human beings, right? So they're attracted to the same things. So we often don't sell agents. We were on the phone last night with agents who have seen, they're just getting licensed. They had seen Courtney's video on LinkedIn, because she's built up like 3,000 followers on LinkedIn, and she posts, weekly. We've got all of our team posting one video, whether it's social, YouTube, on some sort of platform once a week. Every agent has to do that. And lo and behold, we're getting inbound leads now from people. We're just telling our story and we're bringing value first. We're not selling on the platform. There's no need to. In fact, that slows the process down.
Yeah. Stop selling, start connecting. I think that's a big one. So, hey, I want to get a little bit deeper here with the podcast, because there's people here that are thinking like, oh, I've been thinking about doing it. Where do I start? So with you guys, I mean, you obviously had the idea, but you put it into action. You've been laser focused and disciplined. What were some of the early challenges that you had with setting up the podcast? And really, how easy is it to set up a podcast?
Yeah, I think, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, you just reminded me of a memory I haven't thought of in a long time. And it was when Dan and I first recorded our intro to the Vancouver Life podcast. And the first time I heard myself on microphone, and I was like, there's just no way I can do this. I sound like a dweeb. No one's going to listen to me. And it was just this really weird, like, fear, right? I think kind of getting used to hearing yourself and practice, like, holy shit, did we practice a lot? I'll let Dan take it too, because
sure. Yeah, I think, the biggest step, if there's any fear, it's just always taking action. You know what I mean? I was listening to a lot of Gary Vee at the time, and a lot of Tom Ferry as well. And it was really just like, get over yourself, pull out your phone if you have to. And trust me, I've seen a lot of podcasts done this way. The mic on here is actually quite good. And if you want to just record an interview or yourself talking about the market, about real estate, about something interesting happening in your area, record it and upload it and post it. There are endless resources to do it. And then the next one you do, you just know it's going to be a little bit better, right? It's about incremental improvements. And so really, I think the tactical stuff is easy. Anyone can pull up YouTube or Google and find out how to technically do it, right? We started with some pretty basic gear. And once we started to see some levels of success, yes, we improved the studio. Now we've got a whole bunch of mics. We've got a recording studio. We've got a great environment for our guests when we interview them. But really, pick up the phone, buy a mic, whatever it is, and then you just get started because you know you're going to learn by doing. Don't worry about making it perfect. Get out there, record the first one, post the first one, and then get on to number two.
And you're just not going to be able to know what comes from that, and I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like Dan and I didn't really foresee the podcast becoming such a validator for who we are in the industry, right? I mean, when people are like, you go into a conversation and you're dealing with other real estate agents and you've got a YouTube channel, a podcast, you've got this huge social ecosystem that they can then rely on. It's very, very powerful, right? And it accelerated our ability to get in front of people and to build trust. And I think that was the big thing. And once I realized that, I lost my fear because I realized that this was a revenue stream and I just needed to get used to it and get on with it.
So I got a question for you guys. It's interesting. I know a lot of people, want to start YouTube channels and they want to start podcasts, but one thing people struggle with is finding content, always being innovative, adapting, and just kind of like, again, planning all those pieces out. So kind of walk us through the process, from like inception of an idea to actually rolling it out.
Okay, I'll do a couple. First, Eric Preston kicked our butt, but also rolled it out and said, hey guys, as realtors, these are the first 8 videos you need to make. So he's always there as a resource to utilize and offer opportunities. Gosh, I think we almost find it the opposite now that we've done it for a bit. There are endless amounts of ideas and opportunities and things to touch on. But realistically, again, make it you. Make it about your area. Make it about what you saw that week. I mean, I think we're all coming off of a year where we all had incredible stories about what's going on in our industry. Vancouver especially, I mean, you can't go a day without someone just talking about real estate. It seems to be the headline story on the news and in the newspapers every single day. And realistically, just talk about what's going on because people are interested. Everybody lives in a home, right? Whether it's rented, owned, or otherwise, everybody lives in a home. It's something that people are interested in. So whether it's about just last week, we heard a story of a 25-minute lineup to get into an open house. 200 groups came through the open house. That's the state of the industry here in Vancouver. That's a topic right there, and you can rip off that. And then anytime that you feel even remotely dry on ideas, call your mortgage broker, call an inspector. All these people love to share their stories. They love to jump on podcasts because that ultimately is going to give them exposure and grow their business as well. So feel free just to, tap into the people and resources in your area because trust me, people are going to jump to the opportunity.
I think there's one other thing I'll mention. Whenever you're thinking about content, think about the perspective of your audience. Don't think about necessarily what you want to talk about. You got to make sure there's something you're going to talk about that's going to want to be heard, right? So if you're going to talk about something, like in our last podcast, we heard about a UBC professor and 80 other experts who talked about bringing in an equity tax that applies to 0.2% at 1 million all the way up to 1% at $2 million every year that you would just pay the government. That's a 45-minute discussion that CTV provided for us, right? So ultimately, leverage. Look around you. There's a lot of things going on, right? And people want to know more about them. And you're an expert in your field, so talk about it.
Yeah, one thing, if I can just interject here, what also has been fun too is because it started to get some exposure, we then got inbound requests for interviews with, I think one of the bigger ones being the president of rew.ca. And if you're in Canada, you've probably heard of it. It gets millions of visits per month. It's basically a realtor.com, but for Canada. And he reached out, we interviewed the president. It was a great interview. And of course, they have a huge database and reach. And they started promoting our podcast and interview with him. And lo and behold, it is our #1 most downloaded episode. So you can kind of, leverage and benefit off of these people as well, because, there's a lot of people that are going to start paying attention to you if you are delivering consistent and quality content.
They also wrote a feature article about us, which we had no idea that they produced, but because they had an interview that they wanted to pump, they decided to write an article.
Nice.
Right.
Guys, make sure you post your podcast link in the chat too, so people can go and check it out. Guys, subscribe, watch it. This will give you some great ideas. They're in Vancouver, so if you've got some referrals, Dan Wordle and his team. He has an amazing group of people over there that would be happy to take care of your referrals. Guys, I'm going to pivot in a second, but one last question on this. Do you guys foresee yourselves ever moving away from just real estate conversations and talking with your podcast about other things, maybe like Joe Rogan style, or, you know, some of those types of podcasts?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it. I think everything naturally evolves. And the short answer is absolutely, Jason. I think we know we're going to be consistently exposed to great people and high-level professionals, and that can naturally and organically take on its own path. So yeah, while we are just 100% obsessed with real estate right now, can that evolve and change? Of course it can. So, you know, I think we're open enough that if it's providing value, if we think it's going to be something that people will receive quite well and be interested in, of course, you know, there's paths to take.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to do a complete pivot here.
Yeah.
What the fuck is an NFT? Can you please explain what an NFT is to everybody? Because like you guys started talking about it the other day and I was like, that sounds interesting and it sounds important, but I'm a dinosaur still using Facebook daily, guys. So help me out here.
Well, NFTs are really relatively, well, very new technology, but think of it as a digital contract for a physical property or digital asset, right? So the way, I won't get into kind of, you can go down a rabbit hole with this stuff. So I'll try and keep it on the rails with respect to real estate. Essentially an NFT is, it cuts out, if you will, if you think of a recording artist who makes a song, right? Or any creator for that matter, of anything valuable, you attach an NFT to it, which is a smart contract that exists on the Ethereum platform, right? And essentially what'll happen is if I decide to produce this song and I get, I sell it to, you know, Spotify, you can stream it off of Spotify, but I've got a contract on it that pays me a royalty now. So it pays me direct instead of paying Spotify, right? So you can get it direct from me now and give me 40% of the royalty as opposed to it going to Spotify, right? So and that'll happen every time that thing gets transacted. And as it gets transacted or as it gets downloaded, the value on the Ether network will continue to rise in value, right? So now that contract becomes more and more valuable, right? So if you think of it from a real estate perspective, or kind of, I thought of how could I apply that concept, that royalty concept to real estate? And if you think about it, if you're a home builder, maybe you're an architect, or even if you're a developer, and I'll talk about two things here. One is a solution for sort of cheaper housing, and the other is a solution for basically getting more for the property and creating a second tier market in the real estate industry. So if, for example, I'm a builder and I design a one-off home and I'm like, this home is so special, let's call it Chip Wilson's home or something crazy, right? Every time that home sells now, I'm going to attach an NFT to it, right? So it's just a smart contract. Every time that home sells, I now get a royalty, whether it's 1% of the profit, whatever it is I stipulate inside of that smart contract. And it'll pay me every single time that home transacts, whether or not I'm living in it or not, right? So if you're a developer, and let's say you're coming up with, I've got a 150 unit subdivision that I want to build, and I want to provide alternative housing solutions, or I want to provide cheap housing for people, affordable, I think is the word we all throw around here. But essentially, if you create an NFT contract on the back end of it, you can then sell the product for cheaper, right? So if I have $1 million house, but I want to make it affordable at 750, well, then I'm going to attach a 5% royalty to it so that every time it transacts, I get paid as the developer. I'm making that money back over the long term and then some every time it sells at the other end, right? And that way you get people into a home who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. Yes, they pay a royalty contract, or anybody who buys it's going to pay a royalty contract. But if we're talking about owning a home or not owning a home, there's solutions here for, you know, technology to make this process help everybody win, right? So that's kind of where my head's going with it.
I mean, okay, so how far down? You've obviously gone pretty far down this rabbit hole. How close are we getting to this being like an adopted thing that's pretty common? Like, you know,
in the real estate industry, we're probably still years away from it. I think what you'll start to see in the real estate industry first is cryptocurrency being used to actually purchase the real estate. I think NFTs attached to homes, or developers coming up with NFTs, you're going to have to get, that NFT idea through culture first. It's going to have to be widely accepted before I think people will start being okay with it attached to their most expensive asset. And like when the first search engines showed up, be it Google or Yahoo or anything like that, AOL, that whole process when the internet came on and search engines took 25 years, right? Before now, everybody uses Google and YouTube. It's the first thing in your thought. We're culturally attached to it. So will the same thing happen with cryptocurrency? And I think so. It's going to be the money of the internet, right? And NFTs are the royalty contracts and the smart contracts that come behind it, right? And NFT, it's a non-fungible token. It can't be replicated. It's a one-off, right? That's the beauty.
So that's what it stands for, non-fungible
token.
Token.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, if you guys have questions on NFTs, just throw them in the chat. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm actually going to take a deep dive down this black hole at some point here in the near future, because I'm curious to learn where it's going.
Artists are already using them, right? And they're typically going to be the first ones to do it. Art is a one-off every time it's made, right? So NFTs and art go together like hamburgers and fries, right? So whether or not it goes together with real estate in the same way, but I legitimately think that you could attach an NFT to just about anything, and that's where it kind of gets, you just got to build the right structure for it.
So Ryan, how far away do you think we are in terms of, because I know on the last one we talked about, was it like 25 years is usually the idea adoption sort of cycle.
Yeah.
So where do you think we are in that cycle currently?
Well, Bitcoin's been around for 13 years, right? People forget that. People think that it's some fad and that it's going to go away. It's a $1 trillion market. It's not going anywhere. And depending on who you listen to in the space, people think that the crypto market will be a $100 or $200 trillion market, much the same size as the global real estate industry, right? So, and then you got to look at adoption rates, which is, if you're really interested, you can check out Metcalfe's law. It's the adoption rate of the introduction of something into a marketplace. And the idea is typically take 25 years to move through a culture, but we're 13 years through Bitcoin now. So it's proving to be quite bulletproof, right? So now the question is, okay, when does it get tactical, right? When do I start going to my Bitcoin ATM, right? Well, they already exist. But again, the one thing I will tell you, I don't know the exact time frame. I'm thinking it's probably 5 to 10 years for the introduction of NFTs, but I think you're going to see 0 to 5 years, you'll start seeing cryptocurrency being used. And that's when that happens, that's a big leap, right? But in order for that to take place, we need regulation in the crypto market. And that's the tricky part because it's decentralized, right? So it's a big culture leap from where we are. And I'm all for it because the technology is, Bitcoin's never been hacked, right? The blockchain has never been hacked. So it's the most solid way of processing and transferring wealth. You don't need, like, if you're going to change a store of value, if you want to move gold, if I'm going to move $3 million of gold because I want to trade it for a house, I need an armored truck to do it, right? But if I've got the blockchain, I can send $3 million like that as a store of value, right? So it's immutable, it's apolitical, it doesn't have any boundaries. That's where it's a real global currency. And guys, you got to remember, just outside of real estate, there's 4 billion people in the world without a bank account, right? Because if you go to a bank right now, you need something as collateral. You need to be able to show them that you're going to put something in it. But if you've got a cell phone and you have access to an exchange, you have a bank account now. And so people who are not for sort of Bitcoin and not for cryptocurrency, you got to question if they're really for 4 billion other people getting access to a bank account and starting to really help equalize the disproportional wealth in our world, right?
Ryan, people are asking about the metaverse in real estate.
Oh man,
what do you think about that, man? Because there's sales happening right now. People are purchasing virtual real estate right now, which seems crazy. But again, 20 years ago, I'm sure a lot of us would have thought that like you could take your blood pressure on your cell phone would be crazy too.
Yeah, I mean, think less about the technology and more about the demographics, right? You've got a really aging population, a huge baby boomer aging population that's going into retirement completely now, right? And the millennial generation coming in behind them, what do they know? Have they fought wars? No, right? Have they? Well, I mean, for the most part, they haven't, right? Their risk tolerance is going to be a lot higher than, say, an older person who has more to lose, right? So the adoption of the crypto market is going to happen at a much faster pace with young people than it would with old people. The difference is that a bunch of older folk typically own real estate, right? So the crypto market is going to be the millennials generation of becoming millionaires. And as they do that, this demographic of people have grown up playing video games. They've grown up playing online. They've grown up buying skins for their video game avatars. So the idea of owning a digital home that you can invite your friends over to, and the software on your gaming platform validates that this is a one-off home in the metaverse, is like swag, right? So the idea of it is cultural again, and we're talking a shift in demographics. We keep talking about the biggest transfer of wealth taking place, but this is also the biggest transfer of cultural ideas and norms. How we do business is going to fundamentally change in 10, 15 years. So is it weird? Is it weird that people are buying digital homes and, in gaming platforms? I don't think it's weird at all. It's a marketplace. It's not going to replace your home, not unless you eventually completely move to putting your brain online, right? But that's an Elon Musk discussion. So
I just want to quickly add here too, there's a local company, Vancouver local, they are called Keys, Keys. They are currently building some of these digital homes and that are being sold on the metaverse. This is a company, they do have a live token. It's trading, I think, around 24 cents or something. It's become popular very quick. They're moving to Dubai, which likes to be part of the center of the crypto world. But the reason for me saying this is we're working on an interview with them as well. So for those of you who are interested in real estate being sold digitally through the metaverse, look for our interview with the owner of Keys shortly. That'll be coming up in about a month here. These guys are living it, they're doing it, and I think they're going to be a great interviewees and share a lot of intel and probably vision of where they think this is heading.
I can see a question in here from Alex, and essentially he's asking, what can we do to stay ahead of the curve, right? If you don't own cryptocurrency right now, you need to get educated. You got to remember, this time last year, I think it was a $200 billion business or industry. It's now just over a $2 trillion industry now, right? So it's 10x. It's a huge opportunity. You got to also remember, the internet was adopted at 63% a year, the fastest growing technology ever created by human beings. Crypto is being adopted at 112% a year, right? So it's twice the pace. The adoption rate is twice the pace of the internet.
Now, is there room for realtors to transact real estate in the metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Are there going to be brokers of these digital homes?
I think it'll be more.
I have a dumb question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, who creates the metaverse? Like, who runs and looks after the metaverse?
That's a great question. I think that's probably the owners of Facebook. They're the ones that are leading the charge. Right now, the metaverse is more of an idea than it is something, right? I mean, it's an evolving idea. If you think of the metaverse, like think of just EXP's Verbella, for example, right? And the digital online workplace that we have, that is a metaverse. That's what that is, right? So essentially you could buy the auditorium, Jason, or you could build a little Jason's training, I don't know, a little coaching hut next to it. And you could have all of the avatars as they walk by your spot when they're in there. Right. And you can do digital online training there. Maybe they sign up for a webinar in there. Right. And it's your avatar instead of yourself.
So it just, again, it may sound like a stupid question, but like the metaverse, okay, is this like virtual world that's been created And just like planet Earth has land, but this is like a virtual one online, and there's only so much land available in this metaverse.
Wherever you're buying it, whichever metaverse you're buying it in, right?
Okay, so there could be multiple metaverses.
Yeah, the idea is like, have you ever played Grand Theft Auto or any? Yeah. So in Grand Theft Auto, there's borders to a game map, right? It's based on the developer, whoever's building it, right? So they create the scarcity. And if that map is, where it's the highest, it's the most crazy developed, has the most insane graphics, it's got the craziest homes, the coolest designs, who do you think is going to be in there? It's going to have the most expensive homes. It's going to have the most educated people. It's going to be another realm of, it's going to be, it's this whole new entity of existing in another online platform or in another space where it's going to have the difference with the metaverse, guys. And I want to make this really clear, if it's not already obvious, the way countries measure productivity is based on real GDP, right? So labor, consumer goods, all that kind of stuff. We're bound by a set of physical rules. What's really interesting on the metaverse is we're not bound by any of those rules, right? So the whole idea of how do we generate wealth and how do we generate production and what is productivity, all of that's going to change too. So we're rewriting the rules of a lot of this. And that's why I can't really tell you, because I'm not quite sure. It's evolving so quickly, right? And you really got to take a keen interest in it to stay on top of it, but don't think there's not a ton of opportunity to make money in there.
So for you guys to stay on top of it, where are you guys going to get your information? And even to be a little more specific, where can people who, again, just barely scratching the surface, what are some of the tools and resources that we can use to help kind of level up our knowledge?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff, again, it's not regulated, right? So you're not going to see a whole ton of regulated businesses that are going to offer you financial advice about it, right? It's pretty Wild Westy.
Hey, how are you?
So if you're looking for tips and resources and things like that, like Dan and I we actually started our own mastermind investment group about a year. Yeah, it was about a year ago. And we actually had a guy who came in who knew a ton about crypto and specifically Ethereum. And while he was terrible at pitching the whole idea because nobody bought into his pitch, I listened carefully and thought about the technology that was being developed, right? And so I just took the Ethereum idea and started to put it out into my network to see who knew what. And lo and behold, a lot of people actually knew something about it and provided me with resources and things to look up. But there's really a couple places you can go now. So if you're for cryptocurrency, to understand currency, okay, there's a guy called Raoul Pal, who Dan and I subscribe to his Real Vision channel. He's got a Real Vision channel on YouTube, and he's got a website called Real Vision. He used to be the head of Goldman Sachs sales for all of Europe. And he's a beautifully eloquent speaker. He does massive macroeconomic perspectives for you to understand. Basically, what I've been telling you is a lot of what his perspective is, right? So Raoul Pal is a great resource to learn from. The other great resource that I would look at is Michael Saylor, who owns MicroStrategies, which is he is the biggest institutional investor of Bitcoin. He bought 1,900 Bitcoins last month for just a cool 94 million. And his fund is 1.7 billion. Right. So he's a huge market mover and he understands the technology really well. So again, I listen to what's called the What is Money Show, which is a podcast on it as well. And his name is Robert Breedlove. And he's basically an economic philosopher. And he interviews guys like Raoul Pal, and he interviews guys like Michael Saylor. And they have like a 6 and 12-part series. And these are very, very, very educated, very smart people who have abandoned the fiat money system because it's completely manipulated. And they're going towards the blockchain technology as a solution out of kind of the current financial system we're in, right? So those are some good resources.
Guys, do you personally have money invested in crypto?
Oh, yeah.
Both of you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'd love to know, post in the chat if you are invested in crypto right now. And I'd love to know what you guys are all invested in, because I'm starting to look at it. I'll admit it, I've been pretty safe and boring. I own real estate, businesses. I buy investment private equity funds that own a bunch of apartment buildings. Nothing sexy, but it's stuff that I understand.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm not going to lose my shirt because at least I understand what I'm investing in. And that's honestly why I've stayed away from crypto. But I've been realizing that, hey, maybe I should have 5%, 10% of my assets in crypto, just in case that it's something that takes off. And if it doesn't, well, you know what? It's not the end of the world. I can survive. So yeah, seeing a lot of people are actually investing in crypto right now. This is cool.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
It's a fun space. And I'll say just one quick side note here when we're talking about the metaverse. Early signs here, location transfers definitely into the digital world. And what I mean by that is we're seeing celebrities picking up homes. And so people want to be next to celebrities, meaning that when Snoop Dogg buys a digital mansion, you want to be his neighbor. And that apparently increases the value of your digital property. So that's kind of a early look into what's happening in the metaverse as far as what properties are getting interest early.
And mirrored that with NFTs too. So let's say the same Snoop Dogg is going to release an NFT that is art that he's created. What he's going to likely do, or let's say Disney is kind of a better example. Let's say Disney decides to create an NFT, right? So you can go and buy the Millennium Falcon that they come out with or something like that, right? Well, attached to that NFT is going to be park passes, advanced park passes. Attached to that NFT is going to be early releases to, new movies. You can go and check out a movie that Disney's going to release, but only if you have the NFT, right? So that's going to create value for your NFT. And it's going to create tangible value, something you can actually use, right? So that's where the NFT space is really cool. So if you're going to go down the NFT space, look at blue chips right now, look at blue chip everything. If you go outside of that, it's really risky. Not that Bitcoin's very volatile. I mean, in the last month and a half, it's fluctuated by 40%, right? So you have to be willing and understand, but that's how fortunes are made. Fortunes are made with volatility, right? Fortunes are not made with stability, unless you've got a ton of time. So, and a lot of millennials want to live in a house at some point in their life, right? So they're taking much higher risk inside of this crypto market. And I had a guy last year, he sold $400,000 worth of Bitcoin and bought a condo, right? And he had to explain to the bank how he got the money, but they eventually took it.
Now,
so
another dumb question, but a Bitcoin's like 40 grand, isn't it right now, roughly?
42, yeah.
$42,000. So like the average person might not have $42,000 to buy a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
You can buy fractional ownership.
You can buy fractional ownership of a Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. You can buy $100 worth of a Bitcoin.
Okay. So that's interesting. So like so say I own a Bitcoin and I don't want to cash the whole $42,000 out and I go to this Bitcoin ATM. Can I take out $100, couple $100? Yeah.
Yeah. The easiest way to do it.
That right there is, to me, if that's the case, then that's like, this could be something pretty huge.
You don't even think about, you're thinking about changing it into a fiat currency, but if you're going to talk to me about something, why wouldn't you just send me directly your Bitcoin? We'll just do a Bitcoin transaction.
But can I send you just a portion of my Bitcoin?
Yeah.
So I can go and decide how much of the Bitcoin.
100%.
I buy the rest.
I dollar cost average when I invest, right? So I don't try and time the market. It's time in the market and it's understanding the macro swings. I'm not a day trader, right? So I buy the macro swings. So I buy anywhere from, 1,500 all the way up to 15 grand worth, depending on, what it is, where we're at in the market swings, right? So I mean, if you're new to the space, I would focus on Ethereum and Bitcoin only. Right? That's your Bitcoin is digital gold. It's land, right? It's literally the scarcest product in the cryptocurrency environment, right? So that's why it's $42,000 each. And they're going to go, think about it though. If we've got a market that 10x last year and a market that's supposed to 100x, what's the value of Bitcoin in 10 years? Even if it's a portional ownership, even if you only have 5 grand of Bitcoin, we're talking about a potential market shift 100x from where it's at. So, how could you ignore that? It's like you're investing in the internet itself when it first showed up. If you were given that opportunity, you would do it. Right. So this is the same sort of thing that's taking place right now. And I think if you're looking at getting involved, you've got to find an exchange, ideally a Canadian based one. So they're not going to just walk off with your Bitcoin. You want secure sources. Coinbase is like the biggest exchange there is. There's Binance as well, which is a really, really big one. You go on there and you can you set up a wallet, you fund your wallet, and then you go in and you start buying and trading the Bitcoin. And when you've bought your Bitcoin, if you're not a day trader like myself, I would invest in getting a hard wallet. So you take your money off the exchange and then you store that hard wallet, or cold wallet as it's called, somewhere that's not online, right? That way it's not susceptible to being hacked. Nobody can take it from you. And it's called a ledger, and it's like that big. You plug it in and you just transfer it off the exchange and into your wallet.
I'm going to be talking to you offline and picking your brain, because I've made the decision this last week that I want to put something in.
You'd be a fool not to put something in. We're in a huge inflationary environment right now. Huge inflationary environment. We're in a massive long-term debt cycle. If you think that further inflation isn't going to happen, I think you're really risking your financial position. And Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, but specifically Bitcoin, is a hedge against inflation. It's your insurance policy against the fiat money system. If you look in 1970, right? If the average consumer in 1970 versus the average consumer in today's market being paid the same thing, in today's market, that person can afford 40% less. Right? So our currency, whether we like it or not, is being debased. Did home prices go up by 30%, or did our currency drop by 25%? Well, we printed 23% more money. So scratch your head. Right? So this is a bit of a hedge against, money printing, and the fact that, we've been through some serious financial crises, right? I don't think another one's not going to happen. Right? So this is a hedge against that. This is your way out of that system. But they have to exist side by side for it to take place. And that's going to have to transfer at some point, right? It's not going to just be people just jump ship over. Bitcoin and the whole cryptocurrency industry has to become that $200 trillion size. And then we can move away from that. But
somebody just posted in the chat, Fergie, Matt Ferguson, we call him Fergie, works with us, one of our partners. Ethereum is very expensive to make transactions. You could transfer $200 of Ethereum to someone and it could cost you $400.
Yeah. So
that's with most of these cryptos?
No. So Ethereum Ethereum has the network effect. It's the biggest network, right? So all the NFTs, they're all traded on Ethereum platform, right? So many programs are run, a lot of the DeFi space is all run on the Ethereum network, the Ethereum blockchain, right? So the reason that these gas fees are so high is because if I've got a priority to send you a $200 payment, and they're going to charge me $400 to process the payment, well, I'm likely not going to use that platform, right?
Let me stop you for 1 second.
Yep.
Are you explaining what a gas fee is? Because somebody brought that up in the chat. And is that what you're referencing?
A gas fee is the cost to do a transaction.
Okay.
Right. That's just that's the term they use. So Ethereum is going through a 2.0 upgrade from Ethereum 1 to Ethereum 2. So from a proof of work to a proof of stake system. And once they achieve that proof of stake system, the idea of somebody needing to perform a transaction for you is going to go away. So the gas fees, Ethereum is, and Vitalik, the guy who created it, is very aware of the cost of doing the transactions. It's the number one inhibitor to Ethereum's growth. But Ethereum is massive because of the open source network that it provides. So they're fixing the gas fee system. That's going to change. And that's coming this year, which is why you'll want to own Ethereum now.
So I've got Ethereum and I've got Bitcoin written down.
Yeah, there's altcoins too, and there's 5,600 altcoins. right? That's a lot of alternative smaller cap coins that measure in the billions, by the way, but it's really risky. And they all offer different technologies. Some offer none. Some are meme coins like Dogecoin that really offer very little value, but have a ton of hype around them, right? So you're buying hype as opposed to buying technology. But what I like about Ethereum, as a somebody who appreciates technology, it's got a technology use case, right? Smart contract where you remove people out of managing the contract so it ensures it gets done. I like that, right? And then Bitcoin, a store of value. It's your gold standard. Somebody really explained it to me that Bitcoin is the land in crypto, and Ethereum is the tower that sits on the land. And inside of the tower, you've got all these altcoins, which are little businesses trying to be the next big one, right? That's kind of the framework you should think about it. The land is the most valuable, right? Even people don't know what they're going to use it for yet, but they just know it's valuable. The same thing exists in land, right?
So is your thought then that crypto is like gold and precious metals, basically? Like that space is almost going to replace precious metals?
No, it's going to...
As like a
There's two things happening there. Your Bitcoin is your store of wealth. Your Bitcoin is kind of your digital gold, if you will. But things like Ethereum are software where the transactions are backed off of. So they're two different things. Yeah, they're not the same thing. Bitcoin and Ethereum are not the same. Just because it's crypto doesn't mean they have the same purpose or
Great
value.
point. Yeah, great
So
point.
they work hand in hand, kind of.
Yeah, you like Bitcoin is... Well, they don't work hand in hand. I mean, when you think about it, gold exists independently of everything else in the market, right? Think of it as gold. It's the same thing, if you will, right? Upgrades are coming to the Bitcoin network too. There's something they're creating right now. It's called the Lightning Network, which is going to allow people to do transactions much the same way you can on Ethereum, but with Bitcoin, right? And we can still do Bitcoin, person-to-person transactions, but this makes it instant. Right? There's no waiting for money or anything like that. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this evolves. But Dan's really right. You got to think of them as two different things. Bitcoin is a store of value and Ethereum is an application-based technology.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to move off of this. This is like fascinating topic to me though. So thanks for everybody else just geeking in on this with me because it's something I want to learn. So you guys, we're going to wrap up here pretty quick, but you guys made a pretty big shift in your business. I don't know, 6 months ago now, 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago. And it took you guys, I mean, I've been working with you guys for almost 2 years now. It took you guys a while to even have an open mind to making a shift. And then you did, and you jumped in feet first. And I think you guys haven't looked back since. But what was your guys' thought process on why you guys made the move in real estate, where you were at a traditional real estate brokerage, hanging your license at your typical, place, and then moving to something like the future real estate? I'd love to kind of know what your thought process was and where the light bulb went off for you guys.
Of course. So we started at a brokerage that we were, super happy with. They were boutique, they were cool, they had great branding, and really attracted a nice sort of younger next gen agent. There was a great energy there, and we felt very comfortable there. And it was about 3 years ago where EXP, oh gosh, must be 4 years now, where EXP kind of entered into our space. And, I think we went through a lot of the steps that a lot of people do when they don't know anything about it, right? You hear top level stories and you're like, oh, it's either too good to be true, pyramid scheme, fake, not interested, and so forth. Now, what's also very important is we were being pitched that brokerage by someone that didn't necessarily align with us. So the way it was sold, just like you can have a realtor that oversells a house or a client, it just doesn't feel right. That's largely our position too. So it took us years, literally, to actually get into it, research it, understand what it truly is, and most importantly, recognizing that who you come on board with is absolutely vital, and aligning with those people, with their work ethic, with their mentality, with their giver's gain outlook on life, for example. Yeah. So that's sort of my insight into what was the clincher, what kind of set the light bulb off, was recognizing that entering a brokerage or a brokerage change is cool. You're going to get the benefits there. Great. But what the EXP ecosphere offers is a network that is so vested in your success, truthfully, if you join the right ones, that when we witness that, and yes, that was likely after the first 6 months of coaching and whatnot, kind of really saw the proof in the pudding, as they say, Once we experienced it and understood all that, that for us was then the no-brainer to jump in feet first.
Yeah, I think the platform itself made a lot of sense. Dan and I were never against the platform. We might have had our own inhibitions about the logo and the way it was kind of marketed. But that aside, we weren't against the model. We didn't understand the revenue share and thought that maybe it was a little schemy or something, but a little bit more research, we understood that was actually a very sustainable model. I think what really changed for at least for me, and I know it's the case for Dan too, Dan and I really wanted mentorship too. We wanted guidance to grow this business. And we knew that, we have the skills to run a decent business, right? But we want to run a great business. And so, great companies are made up of great people. That's all they are. It's people, right? So Dan and I wanted to find the right people to come on board with. And, like we talked about earlier, we don't want to be sold anything. And look at, the last conversation we just had about crypto was all about providing value so people can understand. People will make their own decisions, right? So as long as they understand what they're doing, then why wouldn't you choose EXP? Why wouldn't you choose the collaborative movement, right? People aren't dumb. So for me, it was seeing value and being able to grow and understanding that our next step is with partners like you guys, right? And we needed to level up with some real serious people who got that.
Love it. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, guys. It's been such an honor to work with you guys and be able to be a teacher, but also a student. I mean, and that's the beauty of a strong mastermind group is you learn from each other and you can make moves together. And all of a sudden you have like-minded people that are moving and making things happen in an industry. And I think what I'm getting from a lot of what I'm hearing today is as a society, I think we're moving away from having multiple hands in multiple layers in between transactions. For example, when you think about currency, right? If I can own a Bitcoin, I could do business with anybody on the planet and not have to worry about exchanges or, you know what I mean? Like there's not all these middle people in that transaction.
That's right.
Think about the brokerage space, how many different like management layers, bricks and mortar layers, all these things that are in between myself and where I was going with the consumer and being able to just strip all of that and to be able to run, a more efficient cloud-based operation that allowed more profitability just makes so much sense to me. So I think what EXP did 12 years ago is they were ahead of their curve, probably no different than Bitcoin and things like that 12, 13 years ago, were probably ahead of their time. But if you look at the real estate landscape, I don't think franchises and bricks and mortar are the future. I really don't, and I did a whole deep dive into this. Believe me, like I was looking at buying franchises. All I kept coming to the same conclusion was I'm buying into a video store. Why would I want to do that? And I'm going to be competing with companies like EXP and Real and these companies that are cloud-based now that have built incredible, powerful networks that have global reach without the expensive bricks and mortar costs.
And the same is taking place in the crypto environment, right? Are you going to go and buy bank stocks?
No. Well, I will buy bank stocks if they go on sale this year, because I like the dividends. Again,
fine, you've got a good reason to do it, but I'm looking at a market that's going to grow 100x in 10 years, and you're looking at a market that's likely going to shrink.
Good point. Very good point.
So and that comes down to defining whatever it is you're going to invest in and what kind of investor you are. But ultimately, Warren Buffett said it really well, and I've been saying it a lot to Dan lately. It doesn't matter how hard you row. What matters is the boat you're in.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, yeah, you can. I think if you're a believer in technology and you're a believer in cloud-based brokerages and the evolution of what business is going to look like in the future, including working on the metaverse, maybe selling digital real estate at some point. How could you not buy into the idea of everybody having a bank account in this world and everybody being able to transact and have a quality of life that would be a little bit higher than what it is now? That's what technology.
I think it's safe to say too that I think it's safe to think that EXP will likely be the first or one of the first brokerages that will find a way to incorporate cryptocurrencies and NFTs and whatnot within real estate. I mean, here in BC for sure, and then Jason just identified this, the levels of redundancies are I think, ridiculous here. There's just too many hands in the pot for when you're transacting real estate. And, I don't think we're that far off from being able to walk down the street, identifying a property, being able to purchase it in cryptocurrency, transact it on the blockchain, and just omit 3-4 layers of people that we're all just paying fees for essentially nothing. It'll be less managed, be more free.
Yeah, think about this. I'll leave you with this one idea with the blockchain technology. So right now, let's say, for example, you've got your land titles office where all of the titles for homes exist, right? Now, let's say we get into some sort of global fiat currency crisis, right? And wars start breaking out, political boundaries for countries start moving, physical boundaries for countries start moving, and a land titles office gets wiped out somewhere and all the ownership records of everything goes away, right? People have to flee from a country, they go to a different country, they've lost their home. Oh shit, start from scratch again. 10 years goes by, they come back to that home, they come back to that place, and they want to reestablish their lives there, right? There's no land titles office. But if I own my home or my land and my title is on the blockchain, it doesn't matter if I leave the country. There's no boundaries to the blockchain. It's a global network. So that provides me so much security on the things that I own. Same with non-fungible tokens. They exist on that very same blockchain technology, right? So that's an evolution of how we can further secure the things that we're buying and become more and more in control of them. Right now, the government, like I've talked about earlier, is debasing our currency, but we didn't tell them to do that. I didn't sanction the government and tell them that they could devalue my bank account by 5 or 7% this year or more, right? I didn't tell them they could do that. So I think now is a time to be more in control of the things you own, more in control of your money than we've ever had. This is the biggest opportunity we've had to have control over those things. And that's why you'll see the biggest pushback from government organizations, because it's a massive threat to them.
Interesting. Very interesting. Guys, thank you so much. We want to do something different than just talking all real estate. So we wanted to kind of go down some topics that were pretty popular. A lot of people were asking us about it, and there's a lot of engagement, which is great. So Ryan and Dan are in the real estate business. That's what they do. As far as I know, they don't sell cryptocurrency or anything like that. So people are asking, where can I learn more? We don't have anything to sell you today. But I will say this, these are the kind of relationships that you get to form when you get to be an owner and you're not just renting somewhere. Like, we are developing these types of relationships with brilliant people, and we're going to continue to showcase these people so that we can all learn and mastermind together. So guys, thank you so much. And everybody that tuned in, thank you for your time. And Ryan and Dan, I'll be calling you soon so we can figure out where the heck I should put some money. Because I want to do it.
Yeah. And look, if anyone else has questions about that kind of stuff, I mean, look, I'm not a financial trader or anything like that, but if you want to pick our brains, we're here for that. Right. So
awesome.
Jason's going to be investing in Dash Coin next.
Even I don't own that.
I'll be buying your first NFT, guys.
That's right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah. Bye-bye.